is a direct Russia-NATO war beginning as NATO member Sweden considers seizing Russian property near a military base. NATO member Sweden pushes to take Russian-owned property near a strategically important military facility. The move comes as tensions rise, with Russia accusing the West of preparing for a possible confrontation. Russia's military meanwhile simulates a NATO attack in the strategically important Kaliningrad exclave. Russia and NATO edge closer to a dangerous confrontation as the latest diplomatic efforts show signs of failing. The Swedish army has asked the government to seize Russian-owned property near the strategically important Musk naval base, according to Swedish broadcaster SVT. The property sits along one of the key approaches to Sweden's underground naval facility in the Stockholm archipelago, giving it potential military significance. The Swedish Fortifications Agency reportedly believes the site could offer unique conditions for strengthening the defenses around the Musk naval base. Swedish military officials say the property could also be important for protecting Musk against the growing threat posed by drones and other aerial surveillance. Swedish media reported that the property is owned by Russian businessman Stanislav Alashenko, whose ownership has drawn increased scrutiny from Swedish authorities. Alashenko has reportedly been linked to Russian President Vladimir Putin, while the property itself is registered in the name of his wife. Swedish reports said Alashenko had been developing a large country house on the property, adding another layer to the security concerns surrounding the site. The move comes as Sweden grows increasingly concerned about Russian activity and wider security threats across the Baltic region. Against the backdrop of sustained tensions between Russia and NATO, the Russian Navy's Baltic Fleet carried out tactical air defense drills near Kaliningrad on August 26. The purpose of the exercise was to rehearse how Baltic Fleet units would respond to and repel a simulated enemy air raid aimed at their naval base and nearby military facilities. Crews from ships stationed at the Baltic naval base carried out their assigned training tasks, including surveillance, target detection, threat classification, and the simulated destruction of hostile aircraft. Under the drill scenario, Su-30 multirole fighters, Mi-24 helicopters and unmanned aerial vehicles from the fleet's drone units acted as the simulated attacking force. After detecting and classifying the incoming targets, the warship crews used their anti-aircraft missile and artillery systems to notionally destroy the simulated enemy force. The drills came amid continuing NATO military activity around the Baltic Sea, where alliance members have increased surveillance, exercises, and force readiness following Russia's war in Ukraine. Russia has previously rejected calls for the Baltic Sea to become what Moscow describes as a NATO inland sea, arguing that the alliance's expanding presence threatens Russia's security interests in the region. President Vladimir Putin has said Russia would respond to any emerging threats to Kaliningrad, a heavily militarized Russian exclave positioned between NATO members Poland and Lithuania. NATO held a large air exercise on August 18, days after Russia's own military activity near Kaliningrad, bringing Allied aircraft together over Poland and the wider Baltic region. Around 25 aircraft from various NATO member states were reported to have joined the August 18 activity, although outside estimates varied and could not be fully verified by alliance officials. US, Polish and Lithuanian aircraft were detected in the region alongside American R-64E Apache attack helicopters, reflecting the multinational and multi-role nature of the exercise. A NATO E-3A Sentry aircraft operating over northern Poland provided airborne early warning, battle management and command and control support for the wider air package. A U.S. Air Force EA-37B Compass Call electronic warfare aircraft operated near the Baltic approaches to Kaliningrad, while Artemis carried out intelligence and surveillance missions in the same area. The presence of several aerial refueling tankers was notable because it showed that prolonged time in the air and extended operational endurance were central to the day's training activity. Separate military aviation activity was also recorded over waters between Norway and Denmark, adding to the broader picture of heightened NATO air operations across northern Europe. A British P-8A Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft and a German military aircraft were tracked conducting flights for several hours between Norway and Denmark, though their specific mission was not publicly disclosed. The exact aim of the separate Norwegian-Danish flights remains unclear, and there is no public evidence that they were directly connected to the Kaliningrad air exercise. NATO Allied Air Command said the alliance is constantly improving its defensive capabilities, underscoring that such training is intended to maintain readiness and protect Allied airspace. The combination of platforms involved was notable because it brought together command aircraft, fighters, tankers, electronic warfare jets, reconnaissance assets and ground forces in a single coordinated package. The E-3A Sentry provided airborne command and control functions, while US and Norwegian fighters formed the combat element of the exercise alongside Polish ground forces. Tankers extended the package's endurance, while the EA-37B Compass Call brought electronic warfare capability and Artemis II supplied intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance support. Together, these aircraft can form a complete operational package capable of monitoring the airspace, coordinating fighters, gathering intelligence, disrupting adversary signals, and remaining airborne for long periods. Geographically, the exercise was significant because much of the activity took place over Poland and the Baltic region near Kaliningrad, one of Russia's most heavily defended military territories. Kaliningrad, Russia's Baltic exclave located between NATO members Poland and Lithuania, is one of the alliance's most volatile operational regions because of its dense concentration of Russian missile, naval, and air defense forces. Such NATO air activity near Kaliningrad is not unprecedented, as alliance members routinely conduct surveillance, air policing, and readiness operations along the eastern flank. NATO says these operations are usually conducted as part of planned and pre-announced exercises, although the alliance does not always disclose every operational detail in real time. As NATO-Russia tensions continue mounting, Moscow's latest air drills near Kaliningrad are raising fresh alarm bells across Europe. Russia deployed 10 Sukhoi 30S M2 fighters for live-fire strike drills in Kaliningrad, according to a report from Military Watch magazine. These exercises practiced both day and night precision strikes against a range of simulated enemy targets in the region. The drills specifically targeted MOC command posts, engineering fortifications, troop concentrations, and armored vehicles. The fighters also trained to operate inside contested enemy air defense environments, practicing evasive maneuvers against simulated air defenses. U.S. President Donald Trump has finally addressed CIA Chief John Ratcliffe's visit to Moscow on August 25, amid growing speculation over the secretive trip. The U.S. President spoke to the New York Post about why John Ratcliffe made the surprise visit to Moscow and what it was meant to achieve. Trump was asked whether Ratcliffe's visit was linked to ongoing Russia-UK tensions or whether the CIA chief discussed Iran-related issues. Trump hinted that Ratcliffe's Moscow visit instead revolved around efforts to reach a peace deal and end the Russia-Ukraine war. The U.S. president said, and I quote, "Well, none of the above. He's there, on very sort of semi-routine. I hate to disappoint people. We would like to see the war with Ukraine end. That's a war that would have never started. If I were president, you wouldn't have had the war with Ukraine, and you wouldn't have had 25 million people coming into our country like they did. Just come in like we were a bunch of fools. It was so sad. John Ratcliffe is a fantastic guy. He's the head of the CIA, and he is not in there for any of the things that you said. Now something may come out, out of it. We're working very hard to get that war ended, and frankly, they both want to see it ended at this point." End quote. On August 25, CIA Director John Ratcliffe made a surprise visit to Moscow to meet with Russian intelligence officials, according to reports. Ratcliffe's visit marks the first known trip by a CIA chief since 2021, before the Russia-Ukraine war began and tensions dramatically escalated. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, on August 26, confirmed that Russian President Vladimir Putin did not meet with Ratcliffe during the visit.
Has Putin already been briefed on the outcome of the meeting with the CIA head John Ratcliffe? Were the results positive? Could you clarify what level of contact this involved? That is, did our SVR head, the FSB head, take part in the meetings?
All I can tell you is that there were contacts through the security services. I can tell you that there were no meetings with the Russian president. And that is all I can say on this matter. Of course, President Putin is briefed on everything immediately. Contacts through the special services are a positive development, a positive process. These contacts often continue even during the most difficult periods in bilateral relations. Our president also spoke about this. However, it is still too early to say to what extent this will affect the overall process of bringing our bilateral relations out of the deepest crisis in which they currently find themselves. Ratcliffe had no contacts with the Kremlin. I cannot tell you at this stage whether any further arrangements regarding contacts have been made. I cannot comment on matters concerning other agencies. As far as the Kremlin is concerned, no contacts are planned so far. It is beyond doubt that Ukraine is losing the conflict. The situation on the front lines clearly demonstrates this. That is the first point. It is also beyond doubt and equally obvious that former participants in the corruption scheme, having left office, are now beginning to denounce their former partners in corruption. Political, or, I would say, quasi-political, turmoil is taking place within the Kiev regime, and it is intensifying. The Kiev regime is crumbling from within. It is losing the stability that has always left much to be desired. And the fact that Europeans do not want to notice this is a grave mistake on their part.
Switzerland has acknowledged that there are no grounds for the release of frozen Russian assets. Could you please tell us whether the Kremlin sees any signs that Europeans are returning to the Russian interpretation of international law, and whether Switzerland's position could be the first step towards the unfreezing of our assets? You've sound.
Who acknowledged it? I just don't have that information. Who exactly did it?
It was the Swiss State Secretariat for Economic Affairs.
Here, we need to. To be honest, I'm not familiar with this decision or this statement, so I can't tell you anything.